Welcome to the day after Thanksgiving episode of And Nothing But the Truth. And I am not Jeff Berlin, as you may have noticed, but he is here. And today I'm going to interview him for all of you to enjoy his answers. And I'm going to bring him in right now. There he is, the one
Hello.
and only Jeff Berlin. How are you, buddy?
I'm great. By the way, do you know the single food that has the most tryptophan of all? You know what tryptophan is, right?
I do. And I've heard that it's turkey, and then I heard that's not true.
Oh, you heard that it's not true. Oh, I
Well,
went by old information.
everybody has, you could find somebody to say everything's true, and you could find somebody to say everything's not true on the internet. So who knows?
I guess so. The internet is a
Let's go
void.
with it. Let's go with
Sure,
it. Luckily I didn't have a whole lot of leftover turkey yet, so I'll make it through this.
buddy. Okay.
So I'm going to start right out with a question for you, okay? Because
I'm
I
happy
think
to
there's
hear
a lot of stuff that people would like to hear you answer,
it. Okay.
and I'm just going to be very straightforward about all
Ooh,
of these.
wonderful.
So, number one, I notice that your sound and your approach to playing, it appears in the playing of a lot of popular basses today, but
Oh,
I don't hear you as an influence from these people as much as one would think you would. Why do you think that is?
oh, wow. Give me a second. I think I can answer this reasonably. Um, I would have to be honest and say that in the bass community, I'm somewhat of a pariah in that I've been very vocal, about bass education, seeing that the product of bass education wasn't doing a good job for people. And it, the resentment about that opinion has carried over to where, at this moment anyway, saying my name or having people that have, let's say, learned from me or listened to my records might invite people to respond in a negative way. And people are quite and reasonably want to avoid negativity. They don't
Mhm.
want it. So, and that's sort of an interesting, I like your question. This is an interesting thing because I'm quite a fan of bass players and champion a lot of guys online, guys that are fantastic players. But having had the background of being openly and unapologetic about, I've apologized about saying certain names that I ended a while ago, and that will never return. But the industry was flawed, and bass education became a thing now. Everybody's teaching and everybody's trying to make a buck off of it. So so my name became sort of an off topic for a lot of people. And that's what you get when you stand for something. You are going to incur the wrath of some people. I understand this. So I suspect that that's the reason why people might not be mentioning me when, I mean, I hear it too, that my influence is direct to a lot of people, but I never got into music to earn kudos. I got into music to learn how to play and share that. And in my presentation of bass education, and the fact that I am a bit of a pariah now, it just goes with the
Mhm.
territory. When you stand for something I would say is unpopular, people might be a little bit nervous to say, oh, I got my thing from Jeff Berlin. And that's what I think that the reason is. I thought that for a while, but that's just people don't want the difficulty and the feedback, the fireback that'll come if they mention my name at this time.
Yeah, I can see that. It seems amazing to me because, and tell me if you would agree with this or not.
Sure.
Most of your criticisms have been about what they're teaching, at least as much, if not more, than how they're teaching it or who the teacher is.
Well, certainly what is being taught, it's a product. It's not base education, not only as a product, but I think it's a base product without checks and balances, which might support the people's belief that everybody teaches differently and everybody learns differently. And So my views never meant, and I tried very, very hard to make sure that people understood that it wasn't, if I criticize RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company, I personally wasn't attacking RJ Reynolds because I don't know the man. So, but people sometimes mesh things. So if you criticize, or if I criticize, if one criticizes a teacher who, or a couple of teachers who honestly are the reason that that bass education deviated away from music, I believe, that people would associate it with attacking the people themselves. And it never was the case. And I tried hard to make that clear, that the product, the actual automobile, you know what I mean? The actual blender,
Sure.
the actual uh, 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 Drano,
The
the
widget,
product,
whatever it is. Sure.
whatever it is, has to come with certain standards. And I see that it doesn't. And because it doesn't, that's when I began to say base teachers are earning money and are promoting a product that hasn't improved a lot of bass players. And by doing so, people said, "Oh, you're insulting this guy and you're insulting that guy." And well, you could, there's a magazine called Consumer Reports. You know about it?
Yes.
Okay, and if anyone doesn't, the magazine literally was created to criticize the effigy, not the effigy, the quality of products.
Mhm.
And the whole principle was to say that this blender has a flaw, or it's a superior product, or compared to this, this is better. So I've done that in base education, but because nobody has done this, people will say, and I mean, it goes again. It goes with the territory that, oh, you're insulting these guys. But what people might want to remember, and I think it's a vital point, is they're paying or subscribing to beliefs to where people for a decade or more have not musically improved. And how I come to believe that is I see videos online and I hear comments about how people are practicing. So, in a nutshell, because I don't want to drag on, I criticized the products, and I still do, because the products have not equaled the needs of musicians. And if a student or a bass player doesn't have a musical background, let's say, like I have a 10-year background in violin, and that coincidence, I might not have had it and wouldn't know what I know. But because I was trained since 5 years old, I was automatically introduced to the realities of being taught, because all instruments, certainly in orchestras and in Western music, just about, are taught the same way. Here's some music. Here's the instrument, the oboe. So you got to unify or uniquely attend to the oboe. But it's all taught the same. But bass education went the other way and said everything is different. Teachers are different. I'm different. And it became such a vague mishmash of possibilities that I said, you guys are not being taught well. And not only not being taught well, you're financing it, a mishmash industry. And doing that was equated with people where I said, this guy's an idiot, and that guy's an idiot, and that guy's an idiot. But I never said those things because I wouldn't say those things.
Right.
That's my best explanation.
I think it's a good one.
I
So
said,
I asked this question because, in college, I was a classical guitar major, and it was
yes,
all about reading music.
yes.
We everything we did was based on reading music.
Hmm.
And even in theory and oral harmony classes and all of that stuff, we were always dealing with written music.
Right.
Um, I know that my professors in college would agree with your philosophy of teaching. Why do you think more people like that I know would agree with you
Hmm.
don't stand up and say they agree with you? Why do you think that, since I know that there are so many professionals that have taught professionally and taught amazing players over the years, not that I'm claiming to be one of them or anything, why do you feel like you get kind of left out in the cold to do this all by yourself, when we all know there's a lot of real teachers that would agree with you wholeheartedly?
Well, I would imagine, well, a lot of teachers do agree with me. Um,
Yeah.
the
But they
difference
don't
is,
say it.
well, the electric bass teachers certainly ignore me. Like I said, I'm a bit of a pariah. Or earlier on, they avoided me completely and wouldn't include me, and correctly so, I might add, in associating with them. But the reason why bass teachers, I think, don't say or might not know what I know is because, just as that coincidence that I mentioned earlier, I don't think they have the musical background to understand that music should be enough to teach by. I know a couple of teachers. One guy definitely went to University of North Texas, which was entirely, I think, an acoustic program, and the focus, I think, was on jazz and the instrument. But once this teacher, who was trained in music, left, altered bass education to include things that historically had no precedence. Other teachers have gone into the industry of teaching, and successfully so, by relating very well with younger guys and showing them cool things, and slap, which I feel never should have been taught for money. And I don't think it does. That's my view. And tap, which is the latest slap academic thing, whereby all slap and tap players are self taught. Nobody taught the teachers of slap and tap. And the association for younger players is that they didn't catch that. So, while, to get back to your question, lots of teachers that focus on music, upright bass teachers, classical teachers, jazz teachers, they do agree with me. But again, agreeing with me is going to bring a war. People in the bass community have made camps. I wish that didn't happen. That it's the pro and anti Jeff camp in regards to education. But you won't find electric bass teachers, I think, for the most part, ever sharing that they believe and support my thinking. Because to do so, like as I mentioned earlier, I'm a pariah. They'll get slammed. It's an automatic guarantee in this day and age. But in, like you said, I think you said it earlier, a lot of teachers understand that music should be enough, but it's not a good moneymaker. And because it's not a good moneymaker, a lot of people have avoided the very narrow confines of proper teaching of music only, so that all bass players afterward could expand and enter into any areas as wide as the galaxy. It's having the knowledge so that you can become what you want to become. But I know one school, I won't mention it, they promised a career, or inferred to a career. I think it's the first paragraph in their mission statement, to prepare you for a career. But I would invite a lot of grads to ask, how's your career going right now? The emphasis should be on music only, and come what may. That's how the whole history of music had progressed until now. So, if I remembered your question correctly, a lot of teachers agree with me. But right now, my name has stimulated an emotional response when it shouldn't, because it's very practical. If you don't eat, you're going to die. Oh, well, I know a guy who never eats, or a vegan. If you don't breathe, I know a guy hasn't taken a breath in 8 years. Everybody knows a guy. Everybody knows a guy. So my mind is in flow here. I'm trying to make analogies, and that's, I guess, the best way I can answer. Did I do all right?
Yeah, you did great. I have another one for you, and
Please
these are, yeah. I know you're not expecting these, and we're doing this live. I don't mean to catch you off guard, but
catch me off guard.
there, and I'm not going to mention names either. But I found um, an interview with a bass player who I really like. I'm not gonna, again, not going to mention names. He's a very popular YouTube bass player, and I think he's just amazing. To tell you the truth, I see him play things that are, obviously they're composed, and he knows what he's, And one time he was answering questions, and one of the questions that was given to him is, have you ever found a song or something you couldn't play? Now, this individual graduated from a major music school. I won't even say what school. I don't want people trying to figure out who I'm talking about because I really don't need that. But he went to one of the most prestigious music schools, maybe the most in some people's opinions. And
Sure.
his answer was, yeah, I can't really play anything real jazzy. I'm not good at playing over changes.
He said that.
Yeah. So my thought was, here's the question to you is,
Yeah.
I feel like everything in bass guitar, this might be a bold statement. I don't want to start a stink over it, but to me, this is my personal opinion. And in the bass guitar world, I am absolutely nobody. So don't get too offended, anybody. But I feel like the only thing that you can't teach yourself on electric bass is how to play over changes. That's the thing you should be learning in college. To me, especially if it's a jazz curriculum of any kind. I mean, I went to a classical school.
Right.
It was a little bit different where our emphasis wasn't playing over changes, but at the same time, we were taught theory extensively, which is what we needed to play over changes in some ways. Maybe you wouldn't agree with that, but I don't know. But so, how do you feel about that? Someone who is a huge influence on bass players on the internet, who is a stunning player, but after in some ways, but after going and graduating from a major music school,
Hmm.
admits that he can't play over changes, can't improvise over changes.
Right.
So, what are we learning in college on bass guitar if it's not to play over changes? If that's, I mean, to me, and maybe I'm just short sighted, but to me, that was always the goal, to be able to improvise a nice melody over any changes you give me. So I'll be quiet and let you answer.
Oh, please. Uh, well, it's a failure on the school because the school should have been teaching music, harmony, because harmony is the substance in all styles. Going back as far as the beginning of the 20th century, there were major and minor chords. That's the substance that should be taught because that's the thing that most people don't know. Uh, I'm guessing that the virtuosity, I think I know who you mean, but I'm not sure. So I'll go general. People that have innovated certain styles did it through their own sweat. They've sat down, and I think this applies to everybody. They've sat down and they worked out over time their particularly unique ability to play the bass. So what you have here is funny. It's the only two ways that I suggest that people are taught, because I always believe there's only two ways. So I'm counter pointing a very popular belief in bass that there are many ways to be taught, when I think there's only two. This goes with your comment. You're either taught music, because music is the very substance that everything we play is based upon, or we teach ourselves, as every bass player, McCartney, go back, Billy Sheehan, Victor Wooten, Larry Graham, whoever we think of, everybody is self-taught. So if this person can't play through chord changes, then I would say that the school failed in their obligation to teach him music in a large way. And that what he acquired through his own auspices. He did the work and created that thing, or whoever we're talking. I mean, there's a handful of guys online now that are just brilliant, brilliant bass players, absolutely brilliant, but might not be qualified to teach. And
Right.
that's where I'm the pariah, and that's where I cause harm. But I do it if I may, to support people that will never hear this from any other source. I'm sharing a thought that will only benefit people. It's caused me a whole lot of grief. You know what I mean? So, but I accepted that because somebody has to share with people that don't have the background and don't understand that they're not getting the product that they believe that they're getting.
Hmm.
And so, in a nutshell, the school, I think, has not done a good job, and that the bass players that are self-taught support that credo that people can do a lot on their own, but they have to be dedicated to solving things themselves. What do you
I
think?
have been watching your videos, everything you've done for many years. In fact, I went back and saw where I commented on a video over 11 years ago of you at an AM show. And um, watching you play so many times and then being able to actually sit in a room with you and watch you play recently, I was blown away by one thing technically that you do that I really need to work on,
Yeah,
and
what's
I don't think a lot of other people need to work on. And so I feel like your touch being so light
hmm.
is really the way to go. And I've heard of some other, big time pros. Gosh, what's his name? The dude from Tribal Tech. He's so great. I would have his name on my
Gary Willis?
Gary Willis. He's also a proponent of a very light touch.
Oh,
Uh,
he's awesome.
yeah, and he's amazing. He's amazing. So to
Amazing.
me, that's the thing I see being the biggest flaw I see in your everyday bass player playing, the thing that maybe they could get from you the most. I know I certainly needed it. So maybe that's just why it feels that way to me. What do you feel is the most common flaw that you see in other bass players' technique?
Well, uh, you stimulate these thoughts. There's two flaws. One, that people believe that they should learn technique, meaning that they should practice things that cause their fingers to articulate rather than using music to do it, or
Uh-huh.
sitting at home and just doing that. So the nature of actually learning technique is has limited bass players and confined a great number to never improving,
Mhm.
because we don't play bass by the mere movement of fingers, but by the notes we play. Um, there is a popular technical use of heavy-handed bass playing that comes in heavy metal and certain styles. So there's a very physical approach to it. Um, Essentially, these are delicate appendages, and we, as younger men and women, might be able to do things without too much problem, but eventually things happen, and
Mhm.
often we cause them by the heavy-handed playing. We have incredible equipment, loud amps. We have wonderfully responsive instruments, basses that instantly will represent a pitch that we play. So, in a nutshell, excuse me, in a nutshell, I play lighter strings, 40, 60, 80, 100 gauge, point 40, point 60, point 80, point 100. And as a ad, I use mark bass standards. The tone knocks me out. I'm a big fan of mark bass. Okay, so I have lowered the action on the bridge a little bit, and I let my gear do the work.
Mhm.
I prefer to, and it took a minute to learn that I didn't have to physically strike the bass, because honestly, you don't really produce that much more of a signal anyway.
Mhm.
I mean, unless you exaggerate the roar of strings, you can't really coax too much more level out of a pickup by striking it harder. But you can use pedals, because pedals are very popular, and you could do an amazing amount of setup whereby you could be rather gentle, easing the tension on the hands and even allowing for more technique, because that seems to be an interest of people. If you lighten your hands, but if you dig in, your hands have to ridge up a little bit.
Sure.
So I'm a proponent of using a lighter touch, and then knowing whatever plugins and gear and whatever is available, I could get a hellacious roaring tone, and I only played like that. And I
Yeah.
still have emotional satisfaction.
Yeah. Oh no, you're still very dynamic in your playing. I mean, you've heard you can certainly go from very soft to very loud without playing very loud. And I that's something that I feel like everybody should hear, that it might help people to not have their hands hurt as much and get just as much out of it. There's always, the exceptions,
Always.
but for the most part, I understand that. So, all right, well, I'm going to ask something else here that I'm afraid might be uncomfortable.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to a
I'm
comment.
Jewish. What about it?
You and your space lasers.
Hi, wait a minute. Wait a minute. There are no more space lasers.
Oh, you got rid of them? Did you guys have a meeting?
The advocate retired. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to refer to a comment that I put on a video over 10 years ago before I knew you.
Okay.
And we didn't have a squabble online.
Right.
And my comment to you was this, and I could go pull it up because it's still out there. Arguing with you about how to improve an electric bass would be like arguing with Arnold Schwarzenegger on how to gain muscle. But you could be nicer about it.
Could
But
have
you
been.
could be nicer about it, was what I said.
Sure.
I I wholeheartedly believe that all of your advice has been good. And I wholeheartedly believe that most, if not all, people that have read your advice, even the ones that get upset about it, believe the advice is good.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like, and I know you've changed so much of this recently. Um, it's not even been all that recent. It's been quite a while now that you changed a lot of this. Do you, and I know you're certainly not mentioning anybody by name and everything, but do you feel like it is the delivery style of your message, not the message itself, that's caused controversy?
I would say yes, because um, as people or some people know, I have a before therapy life. I'll do a nutshell. People don't need to hear my story too much, but
I think they
quickly.
want to.
Oh, okay. Well, in a nutshell, I was raised in a very dysfunctional family and was raised in fury and had that all my life. And when I could have said, my opinion is such and such might not be well, a well thought out thought, maybe this will help people. I said, this is just stupid behavior. And that's how I was raised. I was raised, you're
Mhm.
stupid.
Sure.
And it's okay. We all have our backgrounds. But the thing is that it got me into therapy. I would say I started from age 18 and it didn't do well until about, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago. When I got to Florida, I ran into a hippie. She was a licensed therapist. I'll do this quickly. She was a licensed therapist who was also into spiritual, the Tao, Buddhism, and all sorts of things. She would be in our session barefoot because she wanted to be closer to the earth. She would have crystals and candles and the such, but she was a licensed therapist. She was the first person to help me to get in touch with everything I pushed down. And when it started to come up, I was on the edge of deciding if I wanted to stay in the world or not from the pain I felt for 9 months. That got resolved. Then I went through a second episode where I collapsed again. And she said to me, well, the first portion was, I'm not shelling, to make room for the second. And the second was worse. The worst depression and pain. I don't know how you could have survived it. It began to give me an understanding of why people do an awful deed to themselves when they feel there's no way out. But that passage also went away, and a new joy came up once I alleviated all of the past. It wasn't that mom did this and dad did that. It was the emotion of it that began to come out. I began to deal with it, and it went away. And I mean, it was gone. Then when I moved to Nashville, I had a third one. And this third one was the worst of all. But it only lasted about 5 or 6 weeks. And I was in emotional agony. Now, I'm nutshelling this. Today, I'm still a guy from New York, and I still speak rather straight, having the belief that adults, and I always thought this, I just did it poorly for many years, but I have the belief that adults are deserving of a straight thought, respecting their adult ability to regard it. And I believe that, but I do try, and it is more natural for me to be a little lighter in the thoughts. I invite people, please share. If you feel I'm wrong, please share. If you feel this is a problem, why don't you post a video and show where you feel your playing has improved from certain things. Please list lessons, please. And some people took that wrong. You're trying to challenge us. And in a sense, I am. Support your principles. And I'm offering thoughts. So sorry if I'm going around the barn here. I'll wind it up. To answer your question, I did many things wrong. I was unable to stop. That's the thing about mental illness. Jocko's famous descent at the end of his life was completely out of his hands. It was mental difficulties, no medications that were around apparently that could have helped him. And he's a prime example, I would say, of the extreme harm that can come from mental imbalance. My mental imbalance was that I was out of balance for 30 years as a public-based figure. And everything I did chipped away at my reputation. But Buddha and other spiritual teachers teach that to achieve certain understanding, you got to go through certain difficulties first, or problems first. They actually, I don't know if Buddha does because I'm not very deep in it, but suffering is sometimes regarded as a vital and almost spiritual undergoing, where you go through hardships so that you can emerge afterwards. So here I am, 72 years old. As I said, a difficult name, a pariah. Bass players might not want to regard me. And all of this came from my own behavior, out of my control. But here I am, and to be quite honest, I'm grateful for the trip, and I ain't kidding. I sleep well. I am happy every day. And it's a reward for the remaining years of my life from having dealt with shit. And whatever happens in my reputation in the bass world will happen. And it's all a part of the universes. And I was an atheist all my life. Now I think something is guiding me. I even feel it more as I become lighter inside. So sorry if I'm going around the barn again a long way, but I had I traversed difficult roads, and now the roads are smooth and the waters are calm and there's peace, and for the most part. And I needed to be that way to be this way. I'm curious if Jocko had survived, might he have arrived to this point to a quieter life for him? So I hope this was a meaningful answer for you.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is so far off topic, but it's gonna come up again, and I know the answer to this. And
What,
it's
Walmart?
and it no, and it's
Okay.
really it's as frivolous as that though. And I already know the answer to this. And after I looked close, I could tell that you weren't lying about it. Do you color your hair?
No. How funny.
I know you don't, but it's just not fair. You're like almost 20 years older than me, and you don't have, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
not cool. But okay, sorry. That was
I've had people write me online kind of accusing me of dyeing my hair. And I
I
don't.
know I've heard it before too. If you look really close here, you can tell you don't, because there's a couple gray ones in there.
Yeah, I
On
got
the
a couple of
on
grays.
couple, but yeah, it's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. But so are you would you like to, and no is okay, because I'll have another question for you if you don't, but
Yeah,
um would you like to talk about the new record at all?
I think I would be thrilled to.
Let's
I would be thrilled to.
let's we can skip the subject of like how handsome the producer of the record is and just move on.
He's a stunningly good. Oh, it's you. I keep forgetting. Handsome, handsome producer. That's why I asked you to do it. I wasn't interested in your musical acumen.
All
I'm
right.
sure you're a handsome guy, so I
Yeah,
said,
yeah, yeah. You see, you figured some old guy that did go gray and only has one eye was going to improve the environment of the studio somehow.
well, therapy doesn't solve everything, obviously. So,
But seriously, the new record has such a diverse, you know, landscape. I mean, it's just we go from classical to hardcore jazz to some things that are, I know this is not a favorite term, but some things that some people might think it's a little fusion jazzy with, some
fair enough. Fair enough.
amazing drummers and a lot of some amazing guitar players along with you and everything. I
Right.
just thought maybe if you wanted to share, if there's any part of it that's currently a highlight for you that you think people would really want to look out for, and if you don't want to talk about it, you want to just let it talk for itself when it comes out, that I understand that too, but I wanted to give you
I
the
was
opportunity.
wondering. Well, I'll give a cursory discussion. There's a label that is, I think, from what I understand from my management, is going to sign me. The label is rather a small one, but I understand that the proprietors of the label, from the stories that I've heard, had uh, become interested in music and want to support musicians that might have something interesting to present. We're at a time where the support of musicians who seek music is practically gone, I would say. And yet, this little record label, who I understand is solvent and with some real guts in terms of having the ability to forward my product out there, is interested in me. Okay, the record in a nutshell, because I won't elaborate too much till it comes time to be released. But the record reflects my best bass playing of my life. Now, we all say that. Every one of us that releases a record, this is the best, this is the best. In my case, this is the best. Uh, Before I recorded this record, I would think I was 70 or so. Or 71. I had a thumb surgery, and the bone had become arthritic through age and started to rub down here, and it was causing quite a bit of pain. So I went in, they cut the bone, they did the little stitch, everything they needed to do, and I was off for 8 months. Never was off for 8 months from music. And when I started to play again, I was like those dreams where you're running and you can't get away from the guy. Has anyone ever had that dream? So you're trying to, he's gosh, right there. So I was a little concerned, but then I followed my own advice and I did 2 weeks of this. And then I began to do a little more and a little more. And it was about 3 years ago, I decided to dedicate myself to full time practicing like I had never done before. I had never done before. And I got so involved that by the time we recorded this music, I was in a whole new understanding of harmony and the bass. And I think that this record reflects it. Now, uh, uh, I have the philosophy it's just my philosophy, it's my musical vision, to put my hands on a neck, or if you're McCartney, to put your hands on a neck, but to put your hands on a neck and play the notes. That's it. I chose not to add strings so that I could play these four strings ever better. And I chose not to add techniques so that I can use the techniques that I was familiar with and raise them up. That's what this record is in a nutshell. It's absolutely my best bass playing. Hey, and Paul, I've been practicing since we finished it. I'm not kidding. And I'm even inching upward from there. Practice is brilliant. That's why God, I want people to practice, because the rewards, I'm still getting rewards. So the next record we do is going to be even better. You know, I'm not just talking yin yin yin. I'm talking yeah yeah yeah. I'm talking that the music. I get better and better and better and better and better and better. Why?
Yeah.
Because I keep trying it. I love it too much. So that's what this record is. It's kind of a soup. I should have named the record "Soup," but I didn't. And that's all it is.
It's not too late.
Yeah, it isn't too late. It's Jeffrey Lynn's "Soup." Well, it fits the humor that I have. But every song is different, different. Dave Liebman, the great sax player, played on a record of mine many years ago, and he heard the record and he goes, "Man, you're just all over the map." And I thought about it, and I didn't realize it, but he's right. And that's maybe a problem with me. I like this music, that music, this music, this music, and this music. So I put all these different styles. There's nothing, let's say, cohesive. But then you look at Sergeant Pepper, which has nothing cohesive except for, I guess, when they played the last theme at the end of the record. Everything is different. Every single thing is different. And I love that philosophy. So I did that. And I'm going to continue.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely wonderful. Can we talk when people hear this record? I truly believe the bass tone is going to absolutely blow their mind.
The best bass tone I ever got, and you're responsible.
Yeah, it was very good. Well, do you want to talk about how you got that tone?
No, the tone. Well, no. That's. I'd rather invite people to listen and then determine it. I certainly put chorus on some things, maybe most things. Interestingly, when I used to put chorus on, people would write and said, "I hate the chorus. I hate the chorus." And when people said that, I knew I was on to something. That because people were so adamantly against something, that must mean that most other people aren't doing it.
Yeah,
And that satisfied me to do something as easy to do as to put a chorus as a main tone contribution to the bass tone. So the only thing I could say about it is that it's a DI. I did something special with the tone knobs. I'll keep that to myself for later. And I used a Mark bass amp, and we DI'd. And then we did Paul Arndt's magic. You graphed, and I would say I hear this, and you would go shik shik shink, and oh, over here I hear that, and you went boom boom boom, and the gosh darn bass tone is simply stunning. A passive 4-string bass made in Korea and a 15-inch bass cabinet made in Italy. Unreal,
yeah,
unreal,
it is. It is great.
unreal.
It is great. Your bass is definitely the easiest to play instrument I've ever played.
How
It's
about
just
that?
the way you have it. It's probably the setup as much as it is the instrument itself, but it is pretty amazing. And I think if I could learn to play that light, I could do that with my bass, and I think everybody could, and they probably would have a much easier time. Because I don't know about you, but if I have noticed that sometimes, and especially when I was younger, that I could practice, 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 and then when I got on stage, I couldn't do it. And part of it, I realize now, was because I got excited and I played so much harder when I got in front of people, and it hindered my playing, and I wasn't practicing quite that hard, you know. So I think not just practicing playing with a lighter touch, but practicing playing in front of an audience with lighter touch was probably a good idea as well. Would you
I
agree?
think 100% I agree, because I deal with it to this day. When I'll get up on a gig, remember you invited me to sit in that
Yep.
in that gig in downtown Nashville.
Yes, that was awesome.
First, first thing I did was, because at home I practiced like articulating, getting all the notes. On that gig, I felt, and I went, "Holy mackerel! I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again. It's a lifetime."
It was awesome,
Anyway,
though.
you're
It
good.
was awesome. But okay. Well, we're at about 45 minutes now, which is which is probably about as long as we should let it go.
I think that's fine.
I was going to live stream this, but at the last minute, I made a mistake and recorded only, which is why we didn't have any comments or anything this time. Next time, we'll actually do it live.
Okay. Well, I think this is brilliant. Hold on, I'm turning on the computer screen. I turned the screen off because the screen is here and the camera is there.
Right? Yeah.
So
And we know you'll look at the screen. I have a lot of videos of you going like this.
I know, I do. I do. Oh, what's this? Gotta go get another haircut. I'm starting to look like alfalfa.
Oh, yeah, you're just going to show off that you have hair where we all lost it first. No, that's okay.
No.
Okay, well, we should probably say goodbye to them. And thank you so much for watching. And this is rare. Normally, it's just Jeff, and he's teaching you much better stuff. But I thought you all might enjoy just Jeff answering some questions this time. So please check back in for the next video. It'll be out in just a few days. We'll get back to our regular scheduled programming.
Happy holidays, and thanks, Paul. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'll see you all later.